Welcome to Laying Fallow. I'm Donna Von Bruning. Today I speak with Eddie Ramsey. Eddie graduated from Benedictine Military Academy in Savannah, Georgia. In the fall of 2020, he headed to the University of Georgia and graduated this past May 2024 with a biology degree. Today he is a medical assistant as he prepares to pursue a career in medicine. We're going to start with your quote. It was pretty disappointing to lose all the most fun parts of senior year, like prom and a real graduation. There's a lot on the horizon though, and I can't wait for tons of new opportunities in college, whether it be improving my music, making new friends, or building my way up to becoming a doctor. Even with what we've lost, there's still a lot to look forward to. Real heartfelt there. Mm-hmm. So let's start with this. Tell me what you've done the last 4 years. Where'd you end up going to school? What'd you end up doing?
Out of high school, I went to the University of Georgia.
You went right away?
Yeah, straight off the bat. And so this is actually the first time in my life I've been out of school. It's odd. But yeah, I just recently graduated this past May. And yeah, I'm just trying to get used to the real world a little bit now, I guess. It's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. Talk to me about what it was like being at Georgia in COVID.
Restrictive. It was only my freshman year that it was like that, but it was just weird. It's not like what people describe college to you as. The only disciplinary action I've ever gotten from UGA was trying to sneak Emma. Emma's my girlfriend into my dorm that year. And I had to have a whole meeting with whoever the hell. Yeah.
Did your mother know about this?
I actually just told her about it the other day. She just learned about it.
Because that would have sent her right over the edge.
We're kind of at that stage where I've got enough years
tell the secrets.
All that.
Yeah, I love it. So what, you had to have a meeting?
Yeah, I had that little disciplinary action meeting, some sort of committee. Nothing ever came of it, but it's still sort of freaky when like 2 months after you get there and now you're being called in. And they tell you it's your one strike.
So with all that being said, were the past 4 years anything like you thought they were going to be, like when you were a junior in high school and you were like, I can't wait to go to college. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, I really do think they were. I mean, it was restrictive for sure, but it's the first, time you've ever been away from your parents in your life. You find ways around it.
Yeah.
They had the rules. People were respectful and that like we all didn't want to spread COVID, obviously.
Right.
But then again, the things that they were putting in place were just not reasonable a lot of the time. It's like we couldn't see anyone else really. Like there couldn't be another like human in your dorm room for the entire year. Which is like what do you do? You go to this place where you don't know anyone and then you sit
in a room by yourself?
Yeah, the whole time. But I mean, like I said, we found ways around it.
So one of the questions I ask everyone is, because of COVID, part of what's so fascinating to me is not that you guys lost graduation, prom, like fine, whatever. It's that you lost a real launch year. Like that first year away from home is a big deal. Because of COVID and because of like the restrictions at UGA, do you feel like people hung a little tighter to their high school crew and their relationships instead of like, usually you go away and you branch out and you end up making a ton of new friends?
Mm-hmm. That was definitely my experience. And freshman year, I met a lot of people that had come from out of state. So there wasn't a lack of people trying to do that. But I definitely know a fair bit that just didn't really, like they did what you said. They decided to stay and then their trajectory got shifted a little bit.
And they just hung out with whomever.
Right.
Another thing that I'm curious about is anyone who's in the class of 2020, anywhere in the States, do you guys all have a little bit of a trauma bond?
A little bit.
Or something to talk about?
There's definitely something to talk about. I don't know. I feel very lucky in that regard, at least, because at BC, we did get a graduation.
Yeah.
Even if it was kind of toned down. And then I ended up like going to UGA and staying in the dorms and kind of.
It wasn't that much different for you.
Right. It wasn't that much different for me.
Yeah. You're all pretty lucky because a lot of people just got nothing.
That's what it was.
Well, saying that, you feel pretty lucky, but like, talk to me about loss. Like, what did you lose in the past 4 years? And it could be anything. It could be people, it could be something in your personality, it could be opportunity.
I mean, people come and go, obviously, and there's, God, I have lost touch with a lot of them over the years. You got to be more selective as time goes on. It's just impossible to hold on to everybody. And there's also just, I don't think it was necessarily related to COVID, but I definitely feel a little more jaded.
Jaded, how so?
I guess just a little more apathetic in general, or like unsurprised when stuff doesn't go easily. I guess coming out of high school, everything's been set up for you in a path, and you think it's going to be so simple. And then that's part of what college is like beating that out of you. Like,
yeah,
it's not just going to be there. You gotta.
Well, I feel like we set you up for that.
You did.
You know, check the boxes. Just check these boxes and you'll get where you need to go.
I think it's just the way that like our primary education systems are set up. I think it really, which I mean, young kids, they need to have that structure, but they also need to know that there's something on the other end of that structure without just like, you go to college and then you get out and then you get a job and then your career is just a straight line.
So as far as loss, you don't feel like you feel like perhaps anything you lost was maybe a little bit by choice.
I would say that.
Tell me what you think the greatest lesson of the past 4 years has been.
The greatest lesson.
Did you learn nothing, Eddie?
No, I didn't. I don't want to sound too vague.
Yeah.
Is what it is. But I think, I mean, I've kind of learned a lot what I value in people, you know, just having met more. You kind of get thrown out into the ocean and there's just
different types.
Yeah, there's just a lot more shitty people than I realized, I guess. I don't know. It's just a higher percentage of the population than I realized kind of insulated in Savannah. And there's there's just such a, not even shitty, just like there's just such a wide array of people. I don't know. I guess I really learned what I value about the people that I had kind of like subconsciously chosen to be around. I kind of realized what it was that
kept you coming back to them,
drawing me to them. And I think it's something that I also had a lot here, which is just kind of, I'd say my family is very kind people. Do you know what I mean?
I would say your family's very kind. Yeah.
They're like, at least like
generous. Yeah.
Group that they have a good sort of moral compass.
Not everybody does.
Not everybody does.
So, do you feel like COVID affected your ability to make new friends in college? Like, did you want to branch out? Were you intentional about it, or did you just let it happen?
I was definitely very intentional about it at first. And that was really helpful. It was, against all odds, probably one of the more social years of my life.
Really?
Well, just because, like, what other choice was there? You know, a little bit. Like, I wasn't going to sit in that
room
and be by myself.
So what kind of stuff did you do?
Well, on the first night we arrived, there were a bunch of people going around knocking on doors and starting this big hide-and-seek game. Terrible idea, considering COVID and everything. Just really bad. But I mean,
fun as hell.
Yeah, it was a good time. And actually, I met 5 or 6 people that night that I ended up hanging out with for the entirety of that year. It's just...
That's awesome. Were any of those people in your band? Tell me about your band.
No, they weren't. The band was with my best friend and roommate, William Bell, and another guy, James, that we knew from high school, and then just a drummer. We had to look for a drummer at UGA. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, one of the guys that we met at Hide and Seek ended up being in the band after I left. He came in as a drummer. He's this like drum wizard.
Oh,
His
really?
parents were both music teachers, so there's videos of him on YouTube at like 8 years old, and he's
jamming out like
on
amazing.
Top of a rock wall, going crazy on the drums. So I'm sad I miss that. He's a really cool guy.
Does the band still exist?
Yes.
Really? Does it make you sad? Do you miss it? Or were you ready to let it go?
No. I'm not a performer.
No?
No, not really. I like playing in my room and doing my thing.
Do you think, you said you got like a quasi-graduation or whatever, and so many people didn't. I'm sure you met people at college that just didn't.
Yeah, no, the majority of people.
Yeah, got like their diploma mailed to them or whatever. Do you think for you or for other people that because you lost those like closing traditions of high school and maybe even the opening traditions of college, I don't know what UGA does, but there's probably something that how do you look at traditions now? Do you hold them a little bit more dear, or are you kind of like, whatever?
I don't think I hold them dear at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, UGA, any sort of orientation or freshman year tradition they did, it was probably in a breakout room. So it was not enjoyable. I was probably sitting there waiting for it to end.
Yeah.
So I could go be with actual people.
Yeah, do something else. Yeah. Did you guys get to go do your, how they get everyone on that football field and take the big 24?
They didn't do that.
There's no 24.
We did it later on, I believe. I think it might have been
I think you did it a year, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing we did get to do, not like a university event, but they have a fountain.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about? People go jump in it on their first day.
Yes.
I did do that.
You did do that.
That was fun.
So traditions are kind of meh for you. A lot of people feel like that.
I never walked through the arch either after I graduated. I just realized that. I forgot about that.
Well, fortunately, you'll have to go back up. I mean, isn't Emma graduating in December?
She is.
There's your chance.
I was just there this past weekend.
Were you?
Could have done it then.
So when I went looking for research, I thought, surely to God, somebody has paid attention to you guys. Like somebody somewhere has paid some kind of attention to this class of 2020. There's literally nothing out there about you. Like, how did it affect you not having a high school graduation, not being able to go away to college, all that sort of thing? The only thing that research out there was that the class of 2020 college graduated into recession and had no jobs.
Perfect.
Yeah. Nothing about you guys. But what
they could confirm that for us.
Yeah, exactly. They were very aware they had no jobs. What they did say, anything I found was that what you guys experienced would be considered trauma. And I'm curious if you think trauma is kind of too heavy of a word.
The way it ended up, and it got so normalized because we were in it for so long. Coming out of it, you don't think of it like trauma. But I think going into it, I would use that word just because it was a global pandemic. Mm-hmm. I mean, when was the last time that happened?
That it affected your daily life.
Yeah, and it happened within like a week too, where we heard there was a couple cases in maybe Oregon or something, and then we're done with high school a couple days later. It was jarring. It was very jarring.
It was jarring, completely and totally. Surprisingly, it's about half and half the people that consider it trauma and the people that don't. Mm-hmm. When I talk to you guys, a lot of people are like, yeah, very traumatic. And a lot of people are like, I mean, trauma's like getting in a car wreck.
That's fair. And I think trauma is also one of those words that's kind of changing right now a little bit. So everyone you talk to is going to have a slightly different definition. And
right, because it's kind of a buzzword.
Right, it is right now.
Yeah, I think so too. Talk to me about social media, in a couple different ways.
I'm uninvolved. I won't be able to tell you much.
Are you not on any of it?
No, I'm on Reddit because it's anonymous, but honestly, that pisses me off too much at this point. I can't even be on it. It's just, Reddit is really the same issue I have with the news, which is where I can tell I'm being fed a very specific viewpoint and I'm not getting anything from the other side. And it's just, I don't really feel like I'm gaining anything from it because I can't believe what I'm cool. Yeah, sure. I just read this article on politics or whatever, but I don't really believe it because I don't know.
So you guys you're the first digital natives, but at the same time, you got cell phones like middle school, beginning of high school, but the apps were not what they are now. So maybe you had Snap and Instagram, but there was no algorithm to suck you in.
Right. It was kind of right at the beginning.
So you guys kind of remember life without it. It seems to me you can take it or leave it.
I would say so. And it was definitely more toned down back then. You couldn't just sit there and stare at it for 5 hours. Mm-hmm. If I checked Instagram when I had a couple months after it came out, or Snapchat, same deal, it would be for probably 5 minutes and then I'd
move on.
Not care about it for a while.
So nothing, no TikTok, nothing.
No.
Yeah. What about, and this probably wouldn't even apply to you, but what do you think it did to dating?
Well, I mean, first off, I'm very thankful to not be in the dating pool at this moment.
this particular moment.
Yeah. It's just...
I mean, you obviously had a lot of friends. Like, one of the reasons I ask is because one of the studies I came across said that our generation had a hell of a lot more sex than your generation.
That's true. I've heard that as well.
And a couple things that came up, and the guys are much more willing to talk about it than the girls. And one of the things is obviously the dating apps make it so much easier to be anonymous. Like, nobody has to commit to talking to somebody.
Right.
Like, walk up to somebody at a bar and see where it goes that night. You know, that was how we met people.
No. Don't do that anymore. Yeah, I think it gives people's personalities and humor a lot less of a chance to shine than if you were walking up to someone at a bar and you can crack a joke and, you know, you got them. You got them at least for a couple of minutes, and then you can elaborate and keep that connection going. It's very hard to do that same thing in a first text. And you only get the first text if, you know, they like the cut of your jib beforehand. So
right. And then they're overanalyzing everything you wrote because they have no idea how you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing that a lot of the guys said was Pornhub. And they're like, that didn't exist for us. I mean, until more recently. And they're like, now we don't have to work that hard to do what we need to do. I'm like,
that's
okay.
one way to look at it.
Yeah, I was like, wow, definitely. That's kind of interesting.
I think porn was definitely around before.
I mean, it's been around forever, but
it wasn't as
easily accessible is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it was, you know, go find your I mean, I remember finding my grandfather's Playboys in the basement, you know.
My dad used to have Sports Illustrated that he'd keep in the bathroom or something.
Yeah, right. You know, something like that.
I don't know. I feel like now that turn 10, get a phone.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's just on the flip side of that, it's very hard to, like, just from what I've seen, restrict kids' electronics in like a kind of a justifiable way. Like, I feel like most of the time I've seen that happen, it's been wildly overboard.
Right. There's no appropriate way to do it where you can protect them without being a Luddite.
I mean, could it also have something to do with the fact that, I mean, maybe parents just aren't talking about it enough with their kids?
Could be.
It's just getting kind of thrown to the education system. I don't know. I mean,
Could be. I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. And the guys were like, you know, I mean, they're like, it's just kind of sad. Like, one, we don't go to bars and we're not with people anymore like we used to. You know, you always had the hangouts, like whatever that was. Majority of people went to bars. You knew every Wednesday night, everybody was here to play darts. Every Friday night, everybody was here to listen to this band. Like, none of that exists anymore.
No, it doesn't. It's a lot of, like, isolated occasions, but there's never a weekly get-together sort of. It's never, or at least I've never had sort of like...
No, it does. It's not like that for you guys, where I knew on a Wednesday night I could go, in my 20s, I could go to this certain bar, and I would probably see one of 20 people, so I was comfortable walking in by myself. And everybody was the same, that you could hang out or whatever. And the hangout created relationships, and you know, everything just kind of moved along. And that's hard to do behind a phone.
Yeah, I don't know. It also just, I guess it feels like there's a lot more fear and anxiety out there. Just about, like, being in public, sort of. Something I've seen and heard a lot of people say. And I don't know.
Do you think that's from COVID, or you think it's everything, like the constant news?
I think it's everything. I definitely don't think COVID helped, but I feel like we'd be in the same spot without COVID, sort of, or at least close to it.
Right. That social media kind of took people away from gathering. It's interesting. It's super interesting.
I don't know. I feel like it kind of warps your perception a little bit. Not even just social media, but like the internet in general. I don't know. But then again, I mean, is it better than being very uninformed? I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I wasn't alive then, but
one thing isn't better than the other.
Right.
You know, it's nice to have everything at your fingertips.
If only you could trust it.
If only you could trust it. And, you know, that came up a lot, is a lot of people said that when I talked about social media and you guys and how it doesn't affect you as much, and actually, somebody said it again today. They said, because we are very discerning of it, we understand that a lot of it is bullshit. She said, even I feel like people 2 years or 3 years younger than us don't have the ability to discern that.
I think they'll get there. It's definitely just, it's all consuming. You can't.
And that older people, meaning people my age and up, never had to put into practice the discernment. And so then they take it as gospel. So they fall for it way harder.
That I've definitely seen.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, yeah, y'all had more reliable news sources, at least.
Well, that's what we grew up with, so we didn't know to figure out, was Walter Cronkite telling the truth or not?
Like, is he trying to bullshit you?
Yeah.
Because why would he do that? Journalistic integrity and all that.
Which does not exist any longer.
Not a thing. Yeah.
Nope. Okay, speaking of that, there have been so many social issues for you guys. Right after graduation, there's Black Lives Matter, and then Roe versus Wade, and now all this stuff like Hamas and anti-Semitism and all these protests on campus. And has all of that desensitized you or made you a little bit more of a bleeding heart, an activist?
I don't think it's made me any more of an activist. I try and hold like a certain level of empathy about the things that are going on out in the world that don't directly concern me. I think that's very important, especially like in my political views, to have that sort of empathy. But I don't know. That's part of what I was saying about being jaded. It's just because it's coming at you 24/7. It's always something. Someone's always trying to like tear something down, you know? It never stops. So at this point, when it happens, it's just, okay, so and like, what do you want from me about it? I'll vote, but like, I don't really.
Most people said that they're highly desensitized from it all. That there's too much, it's too constant, and it's hard to get a read on what's real and what's not.
Well, I think it's all real. It's just not all they reported on before. But now it's all they report on, so we've got this illusion that it's happening so much more, and the world is so terrible. It was always pretty terrible, but just not at the same time in the same place.
Yeah, you're right.
See it all at once.
You wouldn't really know. Things were happening over there, but you didn't really know.
Right. And then when you do get the news about it, you're in shock. There's an uproar because it's the sole thing people are focusing on. But now there's something else the next day. So who's really going to go forward with doing
right? And how do you get people to commit to stuff like that? Yeah. Super interesting. I was surprised I thought, because what you see on the media, for example, like all these campus protests that were going on recently is like, oh, everybody's in arms and everything. And then when I asked people that were actually on campus, they're like, no.
Not really.
It was like 30 people.
They were blocking one sidewalk.
Yeah, we just walked around them. Like it wasn't. Again, though, I have to say that everyone I interviewed is in the South. So probably pretty different if you were somewhere in the Northeast.
It does seem to be a lot of the northern universities, at least in the news that I had seen.
So there is a phenomenon called the quarter century crisis. And it's like a midlife crisis. So you kind of hit 25. And all these boxes you were taught to check, maybe a lot of them are checked, maybe some of them aren't. And you're sitting there with the job and maybe the wife or the girlfriend or whatever, and you're kind of like, what the hell? Like, is this all there is? Is this it?
I don't like that, though. I like that. I'm excited about that.
You're excited about that, right?
Like, I got to go to work and I got to have a career, but like, I wouldn't want to just sit around all day.
No,
I get to get home and I feel justified about, I don't know, like have a glass of wine, sit in front of the TV, and I get to do that for the rest of my life. It's so much better than school. I can't complain. But I do see what you mean with getting into that, and after a couple of years, I'm sure I'll probably feel the same. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, another night,
another night of this, huh? Yeah. Or like maybe I should have accomplished so much more. I should be doing more. I should be. Right. Do you think because of the way your class got stuff kind of ripped away from them and you had to make your own way, you had to figure stuff out in COVID and how to move forward, that you guys will experience it more or less than people do historically?
I don't know. I mean, we're kind of used to sitting around. I hate to say it, but Because I don't see COVID really pulling me one way or the other on that. But I'm also of the mindset that if you're happy, then you're succeeding, you know? So I guess it wouldn't really.
So it's not a bunch of boxes for you. It's more like checking off boxes. It's more like, are you happy?
Yeah, I just want to, get home and then be okay. And I want to have something ahead of me, of course, but like,
right.
I don't know when I'm going to die. Just live. I don't know.
That is true. Nobody really knows. What is something that people my age misunderstand about 22 and 23-year-olds today?
Well, you've been there. You know it all already.
What do you think we think about you that is not true or we don't understand?
Probably a lot of what you see on social media about us, which is the same thing that I think about boomers or whatever.
Hey, I'm Gen X. Watch it.
Yeah, just because it's so easy to generalize groups of people, and I don't really think it's accurate. I mean, they probably think we're kind of lazy. They probably think we're stuck to our phones, things like that. But I mean, I don't know. What did the generation before you all think of you? I think that's a constant throughout history, probably.
I don't think they paid any fucking attention to us.
No.
We always say, my friends and I always say, we were the generation of benign neglect. Our parents didn't ask us, didn't give a shit what we were doing. My parents never took me on a college visit. They rarely asked me if I was applying.
I've heard the same thing from my parents. It's
very interesting. Like, their only job was to keep shelter on us, keep us warm and fed. And at 18, we were on our own.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone I talk to in my age is like that. Like, their parents had moved on from them, where we are so invested.
Right. Do you think that's what pushed you towards being very invested?
Yeah, because I think if someone would have gave a shit, I could have done so much more.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know when you're young. Right. The only way to know things is life experience. So if I can share that with you guys, then that could give you a one-up. Here's an example. I didn't know anything about money or investing or anything until I was 30. If I would have known when I was 20, I would be so wealthy.
I've still got that napkin finance book you gave me. I have it on my dresser.
You
gotta consult it.
You need to consult it. But so I've been able to say to my kids, and I know you have one too, dude, if you start a Roth when you're 20, you won't have any of the anxiety that we have about, are we going to have enough money?
Mm-hmm.
Because that 20 to 30 year decade, if you are a good saver, then you're set.
Right. And yeah,
But nobody told me that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my dad would be like,
nice
save money. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Save money for what? I'm going to the bar Friday night. Things like that. So that's kind of when I talk to my, peers, that's kind of what we talk about. Man, if someone would have told me what was possible, not necessarily how to do it, but what was possible, I could have done.
What you give you options.
Yeah.
Just give you some options.
Not just figure it out. Yeah. So that's kind of what I mean by that, where, I think the interesting thing is we then have been probably overbearing a little bit, and it has been hard to walk back now.
I don't know. That's something I see with my mom recently is she's backpedaling kind of fast. She's like, shit, have I been, too overbearing? Should I tune out a little bit and hey, maybe let the electricity go off,
Yeah.
And then he's got to fucking deal with it. And then
they'll learn.
Right. Because that's what she was dealing with at 20.
I just have one more question for you, but is there anything that in talking about this that you thought, I'd like to talk about that, or you want to mention, or did we kind of cover it?
We covered most of it. I guess, I don't know. I feel like I worry a lot as well about the much younger during COVID,
mm-hmm.
the kids that were learning how to read during COVID. It's just, I don't know, not just us. I think we'll start seeing the effects of it a lot more in the coming years.
And so my last question for you is, Eddie, what are you going to do with your one big life?
Well, I'd like to continue pursuing a career in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
If I could become an MD, that'd be the ideal. I don't think it'd be the end of my world if I didn't.
No, there's so many options.
Right? But it would definitely be a big check mark on my list. I'd say that's the biggest goal in front of me right now.
Yeah.
I mean, having just got out of undergrad and like, I got to sort of pick a career that I want to start maneuvering towards.
Right.
And at this point, that's it. So
having a career in medicine.
Career in medicine, just a stable life in general, I guess. I want to live somewhere quiet.
You do?
In the outdoor. Well, yeah. Do you know about like where Maury lives? He's outside Seattle. He has a little property out there.
Who's Maury?
Your mom's brother.
Your uncle.
He paraglides around his.
He does? No, I only met him once.
He's just out in like the kind of like rainy woods outside Seattle. I'd like something like that. Maybe not Seattle. Yeah, I wasn't thinking Seattle.
Thanks, man.
Of course, yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening to Laying Fallow. Be sure to listen to the rest of the episodes, and to learn more and see the portraits from both 2020 and 2024, head over to my website, www.donnavonbruning.com, or to my Instagram, @DonnaVonBruning.